Good evening. This is the Men Flowers for self-assessment number 6. What a great week. I had the opportunity of having a theological construct disrupted by reading Cultivating Words in a Culture of Lies by Marilyn McIntyre. I hope I said her name right. This week we were responsible for reading the first 6 chapters of this particular text and to highlight and focus in on a stewardship model that really spoke to who we are and where we are. Now, the irony in this is that for the past 4 weeks, I've been teaching our church on stewardship. But of course, whoever developed this curriculum, whoever developed the books, whoever pushed the books and said we're going to read this at this particular time had to be praying, because none of the stuff I've been talking and teaching about stewardship was in this book. I have been teaching about tithing and trusting. I have been talking about time, talent, and treasure, but not Marilyn. I was convicted because she suggested that there are several models of stewardship, and one of the models that you and I take for granted are our ability to steward words. You know, I mentioned in a post earlier that my homiletics professor in seminary, Dr. Miles Jerome Jones, shared with us in one of his lectures from preaching papers that all we have are words. And as a preacher, I think I am pretty astute at connecting imagery and words through sermon. I mean, that's really what I believe my gift in on earth is. However, if all we have are words, then words ought to be used to impact and change and challenge the life of people. I know it has for me. The chapter that spoke to me, that stood out to me, that presented some struggle for me was the stewarding of conversation. Now, this seem ironic that the preacher is talking about being challenged by words of conversation. Because as I was looking and reflecting over my time this week, I discovered that most of my conversations are not conversations. They're monologues. We talk a lot, we speak well, but how well do we listen? How well am I listening? And oftentimes, after reading this particular text, we talk about conversations with people. But the real challenge for me was, how much am I conversing with God? Yeah, we talk about the spiritual discipline of study. We talk about the spiritual discipline of being. We talk about the spiritual discipline of preaching and being the great scholar. But how much time am I actually spending with God? Now, yes, it's on my planner. And yes, I do read my Bible. But the question is, am I talking with God? And am I quiet enough for God to talk to me? I'm not actually for certain. God is dealing with me in not just being a better husband, not just being a better man, but being a better Christian. I mean, the conversations that I have, I find time to converse with friends and my frat brother and my children and my wife, but where's that time with God? And when I'm done talking with God to talk to people, the question then becomes, am I listening to what they have to say? Am I listening to their stories and being challenged by what God is doing with them, or do I just want to listen passively, just long enough so that I can spill what I think they need to hear? I think at best, I'm being nurtured. I'm being nurtured in the process by God confirming and reconfirming that where I am is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm listening to God, not in the silence, but I'm listening to God completely in the moment. As I listen to all the things that we could steward, as I'm challenged by Maryland's position on stewarding. What better way to live a life that's pleasing to God than stewarding my words? Choosing my words correctly, speaking words of life, encouraging people to be the best they can be, and realizing that this is where God has me right now. You know, as I think about where I am, I think my strength has been able to speak publicly, able to articulate words that God has called me to preach from the scripture. But at the same time that's my strength, it's also my struggle. Because oftentimes the words that we've been given the opportunity to share have sometimes been used as opportunities to tear down. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. When you are a pastor and you use these words that God has given you, you often will use words that will sometimes put you in position of power. So I've had to choose my words. I've had to learn how to redirect my words with the leadership team, with members of my church, with my family, not to seem like I'm a know-it-all, because I'm not. But really allowing the words that God has given me to not only encourage and uplift my family and my church and the leadership staff, but also to challenge me, because the words that I use, the words that I preach, are not just for the congregation, but they're also for me. I think God is trying to get me to see that I have a lot more growth. I think God is trying to get me to see. He's teaching me, he's developing me, he's cultivating me to recognize that the word is a two-edged sword. It's not just for the church, it's not just for the congregation, but it's also for me. My prayer is that I use the words that God has given me as a direct connection, first of all, with him, spending time with him, talking with him, and then being quiet long enough for God to talk back to me. Use that positivity. Use the words of love and expressions to me. Use the convicting words that sometimes God will sometimes say to you, and allow them to develop me and make me a stronger Christian. I was challenged this week to remember that the words that we have are exactly what the scripture teaches us. They present life and death. The same words that we use to build up can be the same words that can be used to cut down. And I must remember that the words that I have must be chosen wisely to speak directly to where I am and what I am going to do, so ultimately God can get the glory. This is my 6th assessment. God bless.